Navigating the insidious illness of Alzheimer's is something nobody asks for. The disease sneaks up on you and your loved one, and it feels like you've been sucker punched in the gut. Then you ask, where do we turn for help? Who do we call? What do we do? These questions and more are what we hope to answer and give you some direction and hope. Now let's join our host, Jeff Edwards.
Greetings and welcome. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, episode 28, a program where we bring you information on Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, and lots of information and resources for caregivers. So how you doing? Hope you had a good week. If you're in Florida like I am, we are keeping an eye on the weather out in the Gulf of Mexico again. And there's a system coming up from the Caribbean Sea that will bring us a lot of rain this week. Now, they're not expecting it to form into anything tropical just yet. And we hope you made it through Hurricane Helene in good shape. Now, if you're in Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, or especially North Carolina, we know what's happened in those states, especially in parts of North Carolina. The devastation, the loss of life. They need help there. Please do what you can to give. Find a good charity or find an organization that could help you. It's going to take a lot of help and support, and our prayers are with them. Now, this week on GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, we will hear about researchers identifying 2 new dementia risk factors. And we'll check out some more locations to participate in the Alzheimer's Walk coming up, goes through the end of the year. And we'll revisit our interview that we had a few weeks ago with our friend Amy Schenk from the Neuropsychiatric Research Center. Now, I listened to the whole interview again this week and found a nugget or two of information that we're going to share. And share we will. Now, 3 rules we follow, but maybe we can call them suggestions. 1, you must take care of yourself, because if something happens to you, you get burned out, sick, or worse, who's going to take care of your loved one? Number 2, you can't do it alone. You're not Superman or Superwoman, or insert your favorite superhero here. You need help. Find a good caregivers group to get involved with, network with friends or relatives, reach out. Put your own song there that you think about when you hear this. And 3, make a list of people, friends and relatives, coworkers who have offered to help you in time of need. And then make a list of things you need done but can't do yourself because your caregiving duties are overwhelming. Then use the list. Start at the top. Keep going till you get what you need done. You'll find it very helpful. Now, if you're a caregiver, perhaps you have a rule or suggestion that you use and follow. Please go to gutpunched.com, our new website, and leave a note in the contact section. We'll share it with the listeners. Okay, let's get started. I came across an article back in August that I was saving for a time to use it. And it was called 14 Risk Factors That Increase Your Odds for Dementia. And it was written by Robin Foster. And I thought, well, this might be the week. Well, last night I found a similar article, and it was written by Lynn C. Allison, called Researchers Identify 2 New Dementia Risk Factors. So in a period of, 2 months? The first one was dated August 1st, and this was dated Wednesday, October 2nd, the one by Lynn Allison. And so we're going to talk about that. A new study published in The Lancet has identified 2 new factors linked to an increased risk for dementia. Researchers found that lowering LDL cholesterol and treating vision loss can help prevent dementia. The 2 new risk factors have been added to the existing list of 12 modifiable risk factors that include smoking, obesity, and hypertension. According to The Lancet, The initial 12 risk factors were linked to 40% of dementia cases, but the researchers concluded that addressing all 14, including lowering LDL and addressing vision loss, can reduce the risk of developing dementia by 45%. That's nearly half. Now, these findings provide hope, said the lead author, Gil Livingston, professor of psychiatry at the University College London. And although change is difficult and some associations might be only partly causal, the new evidence synthesis shows how individuals can reduce their dementia risk. While age is a major risk factor for dementia, researchers have previously identified 12 potentially modifiable risk factors according to risk factors. And they are less education, hypertension, hearing impairment, smoking, obesity, depression, physical inactivity, diabetes, low social contact, excessive alcohol consumption, traumatic brain injury, and air pollution. Now, dementia, which includes Alzheimer's disease, refers to neurological conditions that affect a person's cognitive ability, says Health. About 6.7 million Americans over the age of 65 are living with the condition, and the numbers of those affected are expected to rise to 13.8 million by 2060. In the latest study, researchers found that high LDL cholesterol was one of the most significant factors linked to dementia, along with hearing impairment, lower education level, and social isolation in senior years. Now, based on the total evidence, the researchers said that people should monitor their cognitive, physical, and social activity throughout life, but especially as they get older. Dementia isn't just a result of aging, it's a complex interplay of genetics, environment, and lifestyle, said David Eagleman, a neuroscientist at Stanford University. He said, "Our brains are shaped by everything we do, from our diet to our social lives." Some interesting information. See how much things change? There's always research being done. That's a pretty good thing.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
I was in charge of my mother since she retired from work. When she was diagnosed with Alzheimer, it just turned my life like upside down. It was difficult for me to identify because she normally forget where she left the keys or if she has something to do. She can have a conversation like normal with a neighbor, but suddenly she comes to me and she says, "Who's that? I don't know who's that." And she started like repeating the same questions. And when she was diagnosed, she said, "What are you telling me? No, I don't have this." Because she didn't want to recognize what was happening to her. 1 in 10 Americans over 65 has Alzheimer's disease, and 2/3 are women. For more information, go to brightfocus.org.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Our guest today has been here before. She has been so helpful to the development of GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. She has worked with the Alzheimer's Association and is still a volunteer conducting education and support groups. Now, we talked for a little more than an hour and a half, so there is a lot, and I mean a lot of great information that Amy shared. And today, we'll share another nugget of information from Amy Schenk in that interview. You go through a memory screen, a memory test, and there's some concern. What happens at that point? What's usually the next step?
I'm going to give you the perspective of what we do at MPRC, because we are a research organization. So if the individual's noticing some challenges, the way I like to say it is kind of confirm that they're having challenges, because again, it's not a diagnosis. What we do at MPRC is we have you meet with our investigator team. And what they'll do is they talk about, are you interested in research? Is this something that you'd like to pursue? And then based on the findings, kind of have that preliminary dialogue. And what our team does is talk about all the options that may be available at our center. Sometimes individuals, maybe they're not interested in research. Totally understand that. So a couple things can happen. We would encourage them to see a neurologist. We would, if they want us to follow up with their primary practitioner, we can do that. But we'd encourage some additional testing. And there's a lot of places that can do that. And we do it in a gentle way. Mm-hmm. The way I would say it to you, although I'm not one of our investigators, but I may say, Jeff, based on what you've told me and some of the things that we're seeing here, I can see that you're having a few challenges. We talk about research and you say, I'm not interested in that. And what I'd say is, you know what? I can appreciate that. I can give you more information, but I think it might be helpful if you had some additional testing so we can really figure out what's going on and then take that next step or make that referral or give the individual some potential resources to make that choice.
Good. That's a smart way to do it. And hopefully they go in that direction. And how you just explained it is the way to do it is it's gentle and it's pointing them in the direction and let them make a decision towards that because they've already gone through it and they go, I didn't do very well on that. I could only remember so many words, et cetera, and then said, well, okay, maybe they're a little bit more receptive to the next step. That's the way to do it.
Well, and I think it's just like anything, any health condition, it looks like this. I think we need to check into that a little bit more. Here's some things you want to do. So we try and encourage people. We are really excited about the research that we're able to offer this community. And many people are very interested in research. The thing that we have to keep in mind is that participating in research is voluntary. And some people may choose not to do that. You have every extreme from people who are, oh my gosh, sign me up if there's anything that can help me, to people who are like, I'm not sure that's right for me.
Right.
Either of those answers are okay. I think we have really a responsibility to educate people on what they may choose to do and support them. Make sure that they have some of those resources. Because when we're dealing with memory issues, and we've talked about it before, it's sensitive. You want to know what's going on. Let's say, for example, what's going on is something that may be reasonably easy to get fixed. Well, you want to know that. Sure. We all would want to know that. And we can't guess.
If you don't ask and don't investigate, you don't know. It could be horrendous. Who knows? More likely it may not be.
You said something that and it comes up a lot. I have people who've said to me, well, I don't want to know. And this is what I say. This is just another interesting fact that we're learning. The changes that happen in our brain before someone actually shows symptoms of Alzheimer's can happen 10 to 20 years before. But what I say to people is whether you are, or how you have some of those changes or not, whether you know or not, you have it. If you do have it, you have it. Doesn't matter if you know or not. So I can respect that some people maybe have some hesitancy in learning about it. What I found is that many times when we kind of talk through it, there's a little bit of that knowledge from, years ago where people think there's absolutely nothing that can be done. And that we're in a new era now. There are things that can be done and we can help and support people. Again, I may say, Jeff, whether you know or not, if you do have those changes in your brain, you have them. There can be, for many people, a sense of purpose and accomplishment of finding out what the heck's going on and then being able to come up with a plan. Because as you said, it may be something as easy as vitamin deficiency or a new medication. Sometimes as humans, we go to the worst case scenario, and a lot of times it's not the worst case scenario at all. We can almost be our own worst enemy. You want to have facts before you make decisions.
Makes sense.
April works with the two medications that are FDA approved. It's Kisunla and Leqembi. Again, she's using them. She's an expert because we did the trials on them, but we're not doing them. Again, we don't do anything commercially. Right. And she may be able to get that to me. That would be amazing because I had a support group today. I talked to my support group participants and talk about that as an option as well. The challenge can be when making the prescription, there's I don't want to say narrow, but pretty narrow parameters of who can be eligible and a lot of diagnostic testing. Mm-hmm. So it's not for everyone. But what I say, this is my opinion. This is the first time we've been able to slow the disease. Maybe not slow it forever, but slow the disease, which is huge. Then we want to get to stopping the disease. That's going to be the next major frontier. Again, the next big thing is preventing it. 5 years ago, we didn't have any of those. Slow, stop, prevent. slow, start, prevent. That's my mantra to people.
I think it's great. And that was one of the things that, going back even a few years, we didn't have a lot of things. And so I'm going, okay, great.
There wasn't anything.
Yeah.
There really wasn't. Other than research, there wasn't anything, Jeff.
I know.
I'm going to say that, so that was probably 3 years ago. Because I was still with the Alzheimer's Association. So I just look how far we've come. And then kind of the next evolution, we do have some new things that are coming in our pipeline of studies, which is really exciting. But, when I'm thinking it's probably one of the next approaches, maybe a combination of medications or medications and lifestyle. So it's not unlike heart disease in some ways, because you don't just take a pill and then don't do anything else. I mean, it's kind of, there are a number of ways to approach it, but this is big. It's not people like, oh, there's side effects and oh, this and that. Yeah, there's side effects to everything.
Exactly.
But it's kind of scary. And for people, Amy's opinion, the neurologist in April, and we've worked with this. We know that there can be, again, potentially some bleeding in the brain. There's a difference between bleeding when you have a paper cut. You bleed, right?
Right.
If I sawed off your finger with if a carving knife, you're going to bleed a lot more.
Right.
Technically, they're both bleeding, but it's different. But again, when we hear bleeding in the brain, sometimes it's not symptomatic. Sometimes it's minimally symptomatic. Sometimes it can just be kind of a rest from the drug. Bleeding in the brain, again, I always say it depends on the extent. But Alzheimer's in the brain isn't delightful either.
No.
I'm saying that to you, but
you're right. You're right.
So it's a risk reward for me, only me. If I was eligible, if I'd been diagnosed and I was eligible and I was able to pay for it, I would do it every day of the week, every single day of the week. The ways that you can manage that are appropriate, okay? So, yes, there are side effects. So I know that. Do I know the long-term effects? Nope. But I also say I don't know what's around the corner.
No, you don't. You don't know what tomorrow
So anyway,
brings.
I can remember going, well, who would ever take that? Well, who is talking to you now? I think the other thing I learned was the commercials are just one part of it. They have to say what they say in those commercials. They have to.
Correct.
In talking it over with your provider, when you say brain bleed, people are like, oh my gosh, that's awful. Except it's not as bad as it.
Yeah, one of the things that I had heard, and I'm not quite sure if it's accurate, is that it's like when you have a cut and you put a bandage on it and you get a scab, and when you pull that bandage off, it rips the scab off.
Yeah.
So the analogy was that when taking the amyloid plaque off the brain, it's the same thing. So there's going to be some...
Very similar.
There's going to be some kind of a bleed, not buckets and gallons.
Right, not like cutting your finger off.
Exactly.
It's the boo-boo.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean to trivialize it. Again, every case is individual, and I think it depends on the conversation with your practitioner, how comfortable you are. I mean, I'd be grilling those, but that's a really good analogy, is they kind of pull the amyloid off. It's like you pulled off a little bit of a scab. You usually don't have to go to the hospital for that bleeding. You can it kind of takes care of itself. Good.
If they could figure out how to put a Band-Aid inside, then you'd be all right.
Right.
Pull it off and put a Band-Aid on it.
With how things continue to advance, that I believe that all of that will be managed. But again, first you have to get there. You have to get to the point where you can stop.
And don't forget, register today for Walk to End Alzheimer's. Together, we can end Alzheimer's disease. Find your 2024 walk. Go to alz.org. That's the Alzheimer's webpage. And on that, you'll see information. And it's held annually in more than 600 communities nationwide. Walk to End Alzheimer's is the world's largest event to raise awareness and funds for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Register for your local walk. You can start or join a team and invite others to walk with you. Or you can start fundraising and sharing. The Alzheimer's Association makes it easy with tools like Facebook fundraisers and their ALZ fundraising app, and there's a lot more. Also, join us on Walk Day. Come together for an inspiring community event that celebrates our commitment to ending the disease. Now, if you're in New York, there's a couple of walks coming up. In Westchester County, New York, well, actually, by the time this airs, it'll be over. It's October 6th. Rockland County in New York is coming up on October 20th. Queens, October 26th. And New York, November 16th. Sounds like a song. And then in the state of Pennsylvania, two big ones, Philadelphia, November 9th, and Pittsburgh, October 19th. And that's a good one because I know somebody who's going to walk in that. Congratulations, Mike. Good for you. That's October 19th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
We'll be right back to Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Are you the caregiver for someone living with dementia? You're not alone.
I was a caregiver for my wife for 10 years, and it was a lot of work.
I'm a caretaker for my wife who has Alzheimer's.
I'm a caregiver of my husband that has CTE, and it's incredibly challenging.
The Dubin Center in Fort Myers has been offering free educational classes and support since 1995.
The Dubin Center has helped me exponentially with so many questions answered. It's just been great.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Thanks for listening. We hope you found something that can help you, a direction, a resource. If you know someone who has a family member or friends who are dealing with a loved one who has Alzheimer's or any type of dementia, that you would let them know about this podcast. For more information and resources, you can check out the Alzheimer's Support Network, https://alzsupport.org/about-us-us. To find your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, you can visit alz.org/local resources/find your local chapter. The Dubin Center is dubincenter.com. If you haven't already, we ask that you check out our new website. Tell us what you think. Let us know where you listen to the podcast or what state you're in. We'd really appreciate that. The website is gutpunched.com, and the email address is gutpunchedac@outlook.com or jeff@gutpunched.com. That's a new one. If you own a business, if you'd like to be part of our website or podcast, let us know. A special shout out to Rick Peterson, Ora Santana, Gentry Thomas, Dan Moser, Sheila Book, the Dubin Center, and of course my wife, for their tremendous help and support in making this podcast possible. Thanks for joining us, and please come back again for more. God bless.
This has been Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, with your host, Jeff Edwards. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to us on all the platforms like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, and more. If you have a question or you want to get in touch, our email is gutpunchedac@outlook.com. Or you can visit our website at gutpunched.com.